One of the clearest signs that the manifesting state is becoming real is that you stop trying to explain yourself into being accepted. You still communicate, you still care, you still have conversations, but you stop making every choice into a courtroom. You stop presenting evidence for why you are allowed to change. You stop explaining your boundaries like you are asking someone to approve them. You stop overtalking your decisions because you are afraid someone will misunderstand the new version of you. And at first, that can feel uncomfortable because the old version of you may have learned that peace only came after you explained yourself perfectly. If you explained enough, maybe they would understand. If you softened your words enough, maybe they would not be upset. If you gave enough context, maybe they would finally see that your choice was reasonable. But the manifesting state changes that. It does not make you rude. It does not make you cold. It does not make you careless. It simply teaches you that your identity does not need to be approved before you live from it. And that is a major shift because a lot of people do not realize how much of their old self-concept is hidden inside over-explaining. They think they are just being clear. They think they are just being nice. They think they are just trying to avoid conflict. But underneath the surface, the nervous system is asking, are they okay with me being different? Are they okay with me saying no? Are they okay with me choosing this? Are they okay with me no longer being who I used to be? And that is not always communication. Sometimes that is permission seeking. Let's make this real. Maybe someone asked you to do something you do not want to do. The old version of you would not simply say, I can't do that. The old version would build a whole case. You would explain why you are tired, explain what happened earlier, explain what you have going on tomorrow, explain why you are not trying to be selfish, explain why you hope they understand. And even after all of that, you might still feel guilty, not because your answer was wrong, but because the old identity believed your boundary needed to be emotionally approved before it was valid. That is where the new state begins to change your behavior. You start realizing, I can be kind without over-explaining. I can be clear without shrinking. I can say no without turning my whole life into evidence. That does not mean you never give context. It means you stop using context to beg for permission. That difference matters. Or maybe you are changing your life. You are building something. You are taking your future more seriously. You are becoming quieter, more disciplined, more grounded, more intentional. And people around you may not fully understand it yet. They might ask why you are different, why you are not available the same way, why you are not reacting the same way, why you are taking something seriously now, why you care about the thing you care about. And the old version of you might feel the need to explain every detail, to make it make sense to them, to make your growth sound acceptable, to make your direction easy for everyone else to digest. But when the manifesting state becomes more real, you stop needing every person to understand the shift before you honor it. That is powerful, because not everyone has to understand your next version for you to live from it. Not everyone has to approve your boundary for it to be healthy. Not everyone has to see your vision before you take it seriously. Not everyone has to agree with your identity before you become stable in it. The state becomes real when you stop asking the old environment for permission to become new. And this can show up in small ways. You stop explaining why you are resting. You stop explaining why you are not answering immediately. You stop explaining why you are choosing peace. You stop explaining why you are not available for the same conversation again. You stop explaining why you are not chasing. You stop explaining why you are no longer reacting to things that used to pull you out of yourself. And at first, people may feel the difference, because when you stop over-explaining, some people lose access to the old version of you, the version who softened every sentence, the version who defended every boundary, the version who made sure nobody felt uncomfortable with your growth, the version who could be pulled back into guilt just by someone questioning your choice. But that old version was not peace. That was survival. That was the version of you trying to stay safe through approval. So when you start explaining less, it does not always mean you are becoming harsh. Sometimes it means your nervous system is learning. I do not have to convince everyone before I am allowed to be stable. That is the manifesting state in real life. Not just affirming that you are chosen, not just imagining a new identity, but making the ordinary choice to stop abandoning yourself in conversation. Because over-explaining can be a form of self-abandonment. You already know what you mean. You already know your boundary. You already know the direction you are choosing. But then someone questions it, and suddenly you leave your own center to manage their reaction. You start editing yourself, softening yourself, proving yourself, defending yourself, trying to make your truth sound small enough to be accepted. That is where the old identity comes back in. The old identity says, if they misunderstand me, I am unsafe. If they are disappointed, I did something wrong. If they do not approve, maybe I should reconsider. But the newer identity says, I can be misunderstood and still stay connected to myself. That line is important. You can be misunderstood and still stay connected to yourself. That does not mean you refuse accountability. That does not mean you never clarify. That does not mean you shut people out. It means misunderstanding does not automatically make you collapse. It does not automatically send you into a long performance of self-defense. You can pause, you can breathe, you can decide whether more explanation is actually needed, and sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the most aligned response is simple. I understand. That does not work for me. I am choosing something different. I am not available for that right now. I hear you, but my decision is still the same. That kind of simplicity may feel strange at first, because the old self may think that is not enough. They will be upset. They will think I am wrong. They will not understand. But the new state asks a better question. Do I need to be understood by everyone in order to remain steady? That question can change the whole moment. Because if the answer is yes, your state is still dependent on their interpretation. But if the answer becomes no, your identity starts becoming more solid. You can still be respectful. You can still be warm. You can still listen. But you are no longer offering your identity up for negotiation every time someone has a reaction. And that is where your energy changes. You become less scattered, less defensive, less desperate to be seen correctly, less available for guilt, less willing to make yourself smaller just to keep a familiar dynamic comfortable. That is why people may feel the shift before you explain it. They may not know what changed, but they can feel that you are no longer rushing to prove your position. They can feel that your words have less panic in them. They can feel that your boundaries are not looking for applause. They can feel that the old access point is not as open as it used to be. That is not arrogance. That is stability. And this is why not over-explaining and not needing permission matters in the manifesting state. Because the person who already feels chosen does not need to explain every choice to be chosen. The person who respects themselves does not need to defend every boundary to deserve respect. The person who trusts their direction does not need every person to understand the whole vision before taking the next step. That person still communicates, but they communicate from identity, not from fear. So here's the practical reset. The next time you catch yourself over-explaining, pause and ask, am I clarifying or am I trying to be approved? That one question will tell you a lot. Clarifying feels clean. Approval seeking feels anxious. Clarifying gives necessary information. Approval seeking keeps adding more and more because it is trying to control how someone sees you. Clarifying respects the conversation. Approval seeking abandons your center. So if you notice yourself explaining too much, do not shame yourself, just pause, then simplify. Say the true thing in fewer words. Let the sentence be enough. Let the boundary be enough. Let the decision be enough. Let your identity be enough before someone else validates it. That is how the manifesting state becomes practical. You are not just saying, I am different now. You are behaving like someone who does not need permission to be different. And that shift shows up everywhere, in your relationships, in your work, in your goals, in your healing, in your money, in your creativity, in your peace. Because once you stop explaining yourself into acceptability, you start conserving energy for the life you are actually building. You stop wasting so much force trying to make the old version of your world understand the new version of you immediately. And sometimes they will understand later. Sometimes they will adjust. Sometimes they will respect the shift because you stop negotiating with it. And sometimes they will not. But either way, you stop making their reaction the thing that decides whether you are allowed to keep becoming. That is real inner movement. So if you have been explaining less lately and part of you feels guilty, do not assume you are doing something wrong. You may simply be leaving the old permission structure. You may be learning that you can be kind without being overly available. You can be clear without being defensive. You can be loving without being easily controlled by guilt. You can be misunderstood without abandoning your inner state. And you can change without explaining the entire transformation to people who only knew the old version. That is one of the ways the manifesting state becomes real. You stop asking for permission. You stop begging to be understood. You stop turning your growth into a debate. And you start living from the identity that no longer needs everyone else to approve it first. Subscribe and enter your manifesting state.